Kimberly. It is Ariel with your Starseed confirmation reading. I sent your charts to you along with some documents that I want you to read before you listen to this, so you'll have a deeper understanding about star markings as well as Pleiadian lineup, and the information in the Starseed tool belt is vital for starseeds to maximize their potential. So when you get done with your homework, if you could, either print your charts out or get them up on the computer where you can see them so you can follow along with the reading. I'm going to start with your natal chart, and if you're not familiar with the way charts are laid out, the yellow ring around the outside of the wheel is where you'll find your house cusp degrees. The green ring around the middle has the house numbers, and that'll make it easier for you to get around the chart as I'm telling you which house to look in. And then the blue area is for your planets. But before we get started on your planets, I want you to look in the center of your chart at the colored lines there. I normally don't talk about these during the stage 1 reading unless I see this one configuration, because it's extremely favorable and rather uncommon. So I'm looking at the blue lines in the middle of your chart. Each individual blue line is called a trine, and the trines are very easy, favorable, harmonious flow of energies between the points connected, and you don't have to do a lot of work in the areas where the blue lines are, because you already did that in another lifetime, where you learned a lesson, you took the test and passed it, and the blue line is kind of like your diploma, and it represents the karmic credit that you earned in mastering that lesson. So the blue lines can also be thought of as masterships. But when 3 of the individual blue lines come together and form a giant triangle, it goes up to another level called the grand trine, which is even more favorable and beneficial than just the individual blue line, and it took more good karma to earn or create a grand trine. And these lessons that you've learned in other lifetimes do get carried forward as an accumulation, so that in this lifetime, if you were to come back into the same situation where you've already got your mastership, your blue line, you don't need to do the work over again. So in certain areas, you just kind of get to breeze through like you've got a free pass. So to help you focus in on your grand trine, if you start, let's start in the 7th house area. If you look on the green ring near the number 7, you'll see a blue peak. Now, if you follow that line up and to the left, it goes to the 11th house, and then down it goes to the 3rd house, and then from there back to the starting point. So there is your grand trine, and it is in actually 2 different elements, because there is a leeway, like a 4-degree leeway. So, for example, in the 11th house, the point that is being connected is your south node. And I'll talk about that more later. And it is at 0 degrees of Scorpio. And then in the 7th house, that placement is at 2954 Gemini, and that's only 6 minutes away from 0. So that's within that orb. It's less than a degree. Orb is what they call the margin or the leeway. And then in the 3rd house, there's that Jupiter. So it is 2 different elements. The water is very feminine, sensitive, intuitive, nurturing, compassionate, artistic, all of those things that go along with the water and the feminine. And then the one in the 7th house in Gemini, this is an air sign, and the air signs are generally more intellectual, cerebral, mental agility, and so this is a combination of water and air in your grand trine. Now, generally speaking, people that have a grand trine will have an easier life than people who don't. Now, it still doesn't mean that every day is going to be a picnic, because the third dimension is always going to throw us curveballs. But I want you to remember that you're going to be okay because of all the good karma you've already created for yourself. It may not seem like that at the time if you happen to be going through a rough spot, but because of all the good karma you've already collected, that will see you through. And you'll be okay even if you can't imagine how this particular situation could ever be okay. The day will come when you see it as a blessing in disguise. Could be years, but that does work like that. So now I want to go on to your planets and star markings. And I think first we will start in the first house, where you have Uranus, the orange symbol, at 2214 Sagittarius. And you'll see you've got what is called a stellium, which is 3 or more things in the same sign. So you've got a lot of Sagittarian energy, which is fairly different, but with some strong commonalities with Pisces. And I'll talk about that when I get to that part of the reading. But in the first house, your Uranus is at 2214 Sagittarius, and this is a star marking. 22 degrees is the mark of mastership. And Sagittarius is about truth and freedom and justice, higher spirituality, the higher mind, higher spiritual philosophies. It is a perpetual seeker of higher wisdom and understanding, as well as a teacher. So having Uranus at mastership degree, this makes you that perpetual student and a natural teacher. And that's also related to the Gemini that I mentioned, because Gemini is the sign opposite Sagittarius, and the signs in opposition often have commonality. So Gemini is about information, communication, teaching, learning, speaking, writing. So this is all kind of encompassed in this mastery that you have. And Uranus is a planet of electrical kind of energy, like lightning. You just never know when it's going to strike, and it comes out of nowhere. So consequently, Uranus is often the planet involved when people get downloads, when they get, when the light bulb goes off over your head and you get inspiration, you get a knowing about something that you just don't even know where that came from. It's often Uranian energy, where things just kind of strike out of the blue. And at mastership degree, there's a common theme with Uranus and Sagittarius having to do with freedom. And with all of this Sagittarius, freedom and justice are really strong within you. And Sagittarius is a fire sign, and the fire signs are very independent and outgoing. And this is in contrast to your sun and moon in the third house, which are in Pisces, because Pisces is much more spiritual, compassionate, selfless, and I'm going to talk about this again when I get to a different point in the reading. But my point in bringing in that Pisces comment is that Pisces, a water sign, will naturally just go with the flow. If this is what everyone else wants to do, then you'll go along. Pisces can be very accommodating in that way. But the Sagittarian energy, especially with this mastership, freedom, higher spirituality, higher spiritual understanding, this is a big thing for you. And it's also a thing with Pisces. Pisces is a very spiritual sign. But Sagittarius sometimes has a little bit of a, let's like resentment about authority. Sagittarians do not like to be told what to do. They've got to be free spirits. So when you get in a situation where something might rub you the wrong way, your Sagittarius could flare up and say, no, I'm not doing that. And then your Pisces comes in and it's like, oh, okay, if it makes you happy, I'll do it. But there are some areas probably that you should stand firm when it comes to your own freedom and having authority over your own life. So you may have downloads of information, but this mastership does have to do with that higher truth and the higher spirituality and the higher mind. So this is going to be a lifelong quest. And no matter how much you understand, you're always going to want to know, well, what's above that? So of those planets that you do have in Sagittarius, there's another one at a star marking degree, and that's in the 12th house with Saturn at 938 Sagittarius. And before I explain this one, I want to make some more comments, because you actually got two of these. As I'm looking around your chart, I am seeing, and I've also looked ahead on the next chart that I'm going to be talking about, and there is a Pleiadian connection. And indeed, the Pleiadians have more bloodlines on this planet, and they really have, they're like the major stockholders in this, on the planet Earth. So when I get to the next chart, I will explain the Pleiadian connection that you're having. Actually, you've got some major activations going on by progression, which I will explain when I get to that part of the reading. So I will explain that further, how you are connected to the Pleiadians, but I just wanted to give you that piece before I explain how the 9-degree star marking works, because you've got one of these in the 12th house with Saturn, and you have another one in the 6th house with Chiron. And 9 degrees is the mark of ship communication. This is your internal guidance system, and it will always be there for you, connecting you to your star family. And through this connection, they have been and will continue to guide you along your path. Normally, their guidance only goes to the point of your free will, and they don't very often step over that line unless it's an emergency, in which case they will step in to help or protect you, even if it's from your own bad ideas, and we all have them from time to time. But if you were having some ideas that would take you way far off course, they will step in and cancel those plans to help keep you on track, because you told them to do that before you ever came here. And in this way, they are complying with your directive. But normally, they only go so far. This is a two-way connection, and it gives you an opportunity to initiate contact. If you had a request for more understanding, more guidance, clarity, information, help with a project or a decision, any time when you would turn to wiser beings for guidance, and the way you would do this would be from a meditative state. Focus your intent on your star family. They know who they are. And you don't really need to use labels, but if you wished to address them, you could just think of the Pleiadians of light. But this is the real key. You have to state your request 3 times in a row in order to give them your permission to go farther than they could without it when it's not an emergency or anything. And once you've done this, just sit back and pay close attention. Because when you ask 3 times in a row, they have to respond. That was the deal. but their response can come in many different ways, so you could miss it if you expected it to come in one form. They can easily interact in your dream state. You might remember the dream or you might not. You might just wake up and have the clarity or know which choice to make. Other times they may use telepathy, but it might seem like it's your own inner voice. You might think that something was your idea, or you might get an impulse that takes you in the proper direction. They might show pictures telepathically that could illustrate your answer. Other times they use elements of nature. Animals especially are very willing messengers if you're tuned in and paying attention. And there's a book that I sometimes recommend called Medicine Cards, written by Jamie Sams, actually written for starseeds, but couched in Native American philosophies. And it's a wonderful teaching tool to help you learn to interpret the animal messages. Other times they use synchronicity, when things that are way beyond coincidence just start happening every day. And if that's the case, it's their way of telling you you're on track, you're on time, you're doing a great job, just keep up the good work, and your answer will be right around the corner. Other times, they might use a starseed messenger, and a complete stranger can just walk up to you anywhere, give you an answer, and then walk away like nothing happened. These people are just used for a few seconds as a mouthpiece to deliver a message, because it's a job they signed up for, and most often they don't even realize that they've done anything. So this is why I tell people just pay attention, because I've experienced all of these methods. However, in order for this to be fully functional, you have to have enough silica in your body. It's like having batteries in your phone. So take another look at the silica recommendations in the Starseed tool belt and keep your levels up, because starseeds were designed to require more in the first place than other people. And remember, cell phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi, computers, electronics, all emit radiation that will deplete your silica and basically cut you off from the people you'd really like to be talking to. So you have to keep your silica levels up. And while the silica does facilitate this communication with your star team, it will not do anything about the radiation that is accumulating in your body from cell phone usage, cell tower proximity, being in Wi-Fi 24 hours a day. And starseeds have to be very careful, because we are more vulnerable to the harm that this causes to our DNA. So when you use a cell phone, keep your conversation brief, 10 minutes or less, because the longer you talk, the stronger the radiation gets, and the faster it accumulates, and the sooner you'll have problems. And when the phone is turned on, keep it out of your energy field, at least 6 feet away from you. Never ever carry it on your body as a matter of habit. Things like headsets actually makes it worse. The only headset that is safe is called an air tube or a hollow tube headset, and you can find those online. And help your starseed friends also wake up about the dangers of cell phones, especially those with children. Under the age of 16, they are 400 times more susceptible to this radiation, because their skulls have not fully thickened to adult level. And it's a very scary thing, because the children, especially these kids that were born after 2000, they've never been alive when there wasn't electromagnetic radiation polluting our world. And when it's their turn to rule the world and make it a better place, how effective could they be when they're too sick because no one told them about cell phones. So do help your starseed friends to wake up about this and get your silica levels up. Next, I want to go to your north and south nodes. Your north node is in the 5th house at 032 Taurus, and that puts the south node in the 11th house at 032 Scorpio. Both the north and south nodes and the house cusps always come in pairs. So the south node is your entrance into this lifetime and what you bring with you from other lifetimes, while the north node is what you plan on accomplishing in this lifetime. Regular astrology would think of it as your destiny, but starseeds really choose their objectives and goals for their missions here. And 0 degrees, you've got this also in the 4th house with your Mercury at 043. So this is very strong with you. And 0 degrees is what we call the crack between the worlds. And this shows up a lot on starseed charts, especially those who do some kind of channeling or shamanic journeying, long-distance energy work, out-of-body travel. All of these things require an ability to at least temporarily transcend the 3rd dimension, interact with upper dimensions, maybe doing distant energy work or gaining insights in meditation that you can bring back through the crack to help yourself and others here in the 3rd dimension. But on a 3D level, this can make you feel like you don't belong here. And since this is the beam that you came in on, you came in through this crack. So it's almost like you're in 2 different worlds, like a bridge between dimensions. But on a 3D level, this can make you feel like you don't belong here. But you did choose to come, and it can be a little disconcerting, but it's completely normal. So when you start feeling like you just don't belong here, just tell yourself, oh, it's only the crack between the worlds, and shrug it off. Don't let it hold you back or draw you off course, because it gives you a unique perspective and helping others by being this bridge between the dimensions. And Mercury also being there, Mercury rules your mind, your thought processes, your logic, and it pretty much runs your life in the 3rd dimension. And having this at 0 degrees, it gives you an ability to perceive from more than just the 3rd dimension. Another thing that I find pretty interesting is that 0 Aries is the astrological, call it birthday, of Athena, the Greek goddess, who was a Pleiadian, and part of this Greek god and goddess experiment that the Pleiadians did a long time ago. And she manifested, she was a Pleiadian cosmonaut who manifested on the Earth on the spring equinox, which is marked by 0 Aries. It can be, the 19th, the 20th, or the 21st of March. So it's the 0 Aries that determines that window. And you've got that conjunct with your Venus, which is the feminine as well. So I just found it interesting. I don't know if it resonates with you, but if you look also on your 4th house cusp, you've got another 0, and because the cusps come in pairs, at the top of the chart, you've got the 030 in Libra. So you have 2, 4, 5 cracks between the worlds. And you may have a little bit of a challenge being part of the 3rd dimension, which is accentuated by being a double Pisces, which you are. And I'll talk about that pretty soon here, but there's a couple more things I want to cover. On your 3rd house cusp, you have 1201 Aquarius, and that puts the 9th house cusp at 1201 Leo. 12 degrees is the mark of the healer. And in the sign of Aquarius, this can manifest in different ways. I'd say maybe not so much physical healing, but more healing through teaching of new ideas. Because the third house, being the home of Gemini, is about information, whether you learn it, teach it, speak it, write it, research it, develop it, exchange anything that has to do with information. That's the domain of the third house. So with the mark of the healer in Aquarius, Aquarius can be about crystals or technology, so it could be healing in that way. And truly, if you're on the internet, that's technology. And if you are putting information out that would be of a healing kind of a nature, uplifting, that would be something that you have your name on, involving writing and teaching, sharing information. But Aquarius is also a sign of liberation. It's freedom after restriction. And Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So that that liberation energy you've got in another place as well. And Sagittarius is about freedom. And Uranus is freedom after restriction, which I just call liberation. Breaking free from a restricting situation. That's what Uranus is really good with helping with. So with 12 Aquarius, this can be healing using your words to help liberate people from things that are holding them back. And there's so much false programming on this planet that we have a lot of areas to choose from. Now, at the top of the chart, near the top of the chart, you've got the 1201 Leo. And Leo is about leadership, as all the fire signs are. But it doesn't necessarily have to be being on the stage or in the spotlight, because for the most part, Pisces does not like that. But it could be leading by example. And your leadership would bring that healing. And it's on the 9th house. This is the home of Sagittarius. And with all of the Sagittarius energy that you carry, you can be a very good teacher and a good leader. And it can be, as I said, if you lead by example or inspire people like a parent would, build up their strength and their courage, help them get up on their feet and get, started on their path. This is also a form of leadership. And Leo does have that parental kind of energy, where you would, like you would with a child, it could be somebody even older than you, but you'd kind of take them under your wing and strengthen them. So this can also be, if you have any inclinations as a writer, this can come easily through your words, your written words, but there is a healing that you can bring to people. So now I want to point out, okay, on your 11th house cusp, 2401 Libra, and that's the same on the other side with Aries. And I'm going to be explaining what progression is here in a few minutes, but this, by the time you were 1 year old, actually before then, maybe even 9 months old, this had activated galactic degree in Libra, which is about bringing balance and peace and harmony. And Libra's also about justice. So Libra has the justice thing. Sagittarius has the justice thing. Aquarius has the liberation, and certainly being liberated from situations that are unjust. This is part of what makes you up. And then on the 5th house cusp, same thing happened when you were just under a year old with galactic degree in Aries. And the two of these together are about leading people to balance. But again, you don't have to be in the spotlight if that makes you uncomfortable. There are many ways that you can lead quietly, leading by example, and inspire people to want to be more like you. So, and I'm going to get to the progress chart in a few minutes, but I want to make a few more comments here before we move on. And first of all, the sun, the moon, and the rising. Those are the three primary building blocks of your chart. And because you have your sun sign and your moon in Pisces, that makes you a double Pisces. And the sun and the moon are the masculine and the feminine. And there is, I'm going to say, a possible mission here, because I'm seeing star markings that often point in that direction. So if this resonates with you, if you do feel that you have your masculine and feminine in balance, which, you know, the sun and the moon or Venus and Mars can bring to a person, then the healing and returning of the balance between masculine and feminine is a possible mission that you have. And well, certainly with Venus in Aries, new beginnings for the feminine, and the moon in Pisces brings you great compassion, intuition, and Pisces is a naturally spiritual sign, and it is about spiritual service to groups of people. It is selfless, ego-denying, and very humble by nature. And Pisces is a sign of great spiritual attainment. You'll notice you've also got Jupiter in that mix. So you've got a stellium, another one, in Pisces. And every sign has a high side and a low side. And of course, we want to gravitate towards the higher frequencies. I think of them as like the sopranos in the chorus. So Pisces can be very insightful and intuitive and just naturally want to help people. But you have to be careful, because this is so strong with you that you could end up being a doormat, because Pisces has a really hard time saying no. If someone has a sad story, there's some part of you that wants to rush in and save them. That's a very natural thing. I've got my Mercury in Pisces, and it's taken me decades to get the good out of that and leave the not so enjoyable part of it behind, because there's a part of Pisces that is just inherently discontent with the third dimension. And when I saw the double Pisces and the crack between the worlds, I thought, whoa, you probably have a struggle in wanting to be here, because Pisces often wants to escape the harshness and the cruelness of the third dimension, which is why a lot of Pisces people are artists, musicians. And that's, I found my refuge in music to get away from the cruel third dimension, where people are not nice to each other. But it would be really helpful if you had some shielding techniques and emotional boundaries. And of course, we are all here to lend a helping hand and to help people, take a step up. And doing that, a couple of times for someone can be a noble thing. But if you notice that the same person keeps coming back over and over and over again for more of your help, and you see that they don't seem to be getting anywhere, these are times when you have to say no, because you'll end up being, everyone's slave, and that can get really tiring. So, and especially if you go out into public places, you need to put up some shields, because you'll pick up energy from other people, whether you want to or not. And notice that this Jupiter that you've got in Pisces as well is one of the corners of your grand trine. So that is giving it even more influence in this way, in this area. Now, your psychic ability, your intuition, your natural nurturing energies are all, benefits from all this Piscean energy. But Pisces has a wonderful imagination, which is why writers and musicians and artists often have strong Piscean energies. But you have to know when it's taking you down the rabbit hole. I call it the what ifs. And I've played this game with myself for a long time until I finally learned how to tell my Mercury in Pisces to go sit down and shut up. So when you, and I can do this in a nanosecond, be in a situation and I go, oh no, what if? What if the leash breaks and my dog runs out in the road and she gets killed or she gets hurt and then I'm taking her to the vet and blah, blah. And then this goes through my mind in a nanosecond. And I call it the oh no, what ifs. As soon as you hear yourself doing that, grab a hold and it's like, all right, this is fantasy. It's imagination. And I figured that, if something terrible happens, I'm going to have to deal with it when it's real. I don't need to be dealing with it for years or months ahead of time, because if you do keep thinking, it's like, oh no, what if this happens? And you keep thinking, what would you do? What if this happens? And you have this whole scenario. The more you define that scenario, the more likely you are to manifest exactly what you don't want. So I would say in that situation, call up your Aries and your Sagittarius, and because there's a lot of fire and true grit that comes with the fire signs, and when you need courage and energy, you can pull on that part of your chart. Just look. You can look on the internet for different shielding techniques. I like the spinning vortex, which is kind of like imagining a tornado around your body, spinning counterclockwise. And anything that hits that energy field, if it doesn't serve you, it just flies off. So if you go to the mall at Christmas time, you won't come home feeling everyone else's stress like I did. And don't beat yourself up. A Pisces can very easily, there's just this little voice. If you do something and someone is saying, wow, that was great, you did such a wonderful job, there's a little voice inside that goes, oh no, it wasn't really all that good. Oh no, I could have done a lot better. I've been doing that for years. And just learn how to say thank you and allow yourself to feel good about an accomplishment, and don't tear yourself down too much, because it's just a Piscean thing. So pull on that Sagittarius when you need confidence, and when you need to stand up for yourself, you go for the Aries. And the first house cusp out there on the yellow ring at 1101, Sagittarius, this is your rising sign. And it's how you see the world and how the world sees you. So the world may not exactly see you for who you really are. They're going to see you more as a Sagittarian. And Sagittarius has a great level of discernment in telling truth, fiction from fantasy. So, and Pisces sometimes cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So when you need that discernment, just pull up your rising sign and think of this Sagittarian energy and let that be your filter. So that makes Jupiter your chart ruler, because whatever planet rules the rising sign also is the chart ruler. And it's probably the fourth most influential part of a chart. And it has a little influence really in everything that you do. So Jupiter in Pisces in the third house is your chart ruler. So this is accentuating that Piscean energy. And your heart is so big. And as soon as people figure that out, if they give you a good enough sob story that you'll give them anything they want, just, use it for your advantage and not for the advantage of others who would try to use you. Then remember, the third house, ruled by Gemini, is about writing. And this can also open the door, again, as a writer, if you have any inclinations in that way. So I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about this chart. And now we're going to go to your progressed chart. And this one is like a map of where your natal planets are right now. Your natal chart is a permanent blueprint. It's yours for life, and it's never going to change. And the progressed chart is like a map of the evolution of those natal planets, and as they progress around the wheel, when they cross over a star marking frequency, it will unlock the codes and the rites of passage associated with those marks, and it will add to what you came in with. And these, once an activation happens by progression, you get to keep it. It never goes away. It's like reinstating an old diploma, and you can hang it on the wall with your other diplomas, even after the planet moves on. You still get to keep that activation. And these charts don't change very quickly. So it's really a look at the current era of your life. So first of all, I want to point out some what I call resets or reboots. If you look in the 11th house, there is your Saturn, and it's back at 9 degrees, 11 minutes of Sagittarius. And you'll see that little red R. That means that it's gone retrograde. And this is a matter of course. If you look back at the natal chart, you'll see that your Saturn was at 938, but it was direct. There was no red R. So the numbers increased for a while in progression, and then at some point it went retrograde and the numbers started decreasing. And the end result, it's back where it started from, at the mark of ship communication. And if you go straight across the chart from there into the 5th house, you'll see that your progressed moon is also now at 9 degrees, 27 minutes of Gemini. So this is a new mark of ship communication, but it's adding to the strength of what you came in with, and it's essentially like having another phone installed in your house with more opportunities for guidance. And having it on your moon is very influential, because most people make their choices based on how they feel about something, and the moon's about feeling. So having the mark of ship communication and the guidance from the ship, if you emotionally, if you just feel like I need to go do this today or I need to go do that, you just have a feeling. Pay attention to that, because it could be something important. And now if we go to the 12th house, we'll see that the same kind of situation has happened with your Uranus, because it too is now back at the mastership degree in Sagittarius, because Uranus was direct when you were born at 2214. So the numbers got a little bit higher. Uranus doesn't go all that far in a lifetime. And then it turned around and started coming back down again, and now it's back at 22. So this is another reboot, but it has moved into the 12th house, and this is the home of Pisces. It is about spiritual service to groups of people, great compassion. The 12th house also holds soul records, ancient wisdom, ancient mysteries, and ancient truths. So with Uranus there being that planet that often brings downloads of information, truthful spiritual information. And this can come through your dreams as well, because the 12th house rules dreams, dreamers, visionaries, people that can imagine other possibilities. We just hope that those possibilities are positive. You don't try not to imagine, negative possibilities, because you'll just end up manifesting them. Oh, also, your 1st and 7th house cusps are at 8:59. Your 2nd and 8th house cusps are at 8:55. So this is 4 more marks of ship communication, because in Starseed astrology, when the minutes are over 30, it will activate the next higher degree. And if that next degree is a star marking, then we'd round up. So when I see 8:55, 8:59, it just automatically translates as another 9-degree placement. So you've got 5 new 9-degree star markings, in addition to a reboot of the original star marking with the Saturn at 9. So this is a lot of guidance coming in for you. Now, if you look at the 11th house cusp, you'll see 2428 Scorpio, and that puts the 5th house cusp at the same numbers, 2428 Taurus. And probably within a month, this is going to go over that tipping point. When it gets to be like 2431, it's going to activate galactic degree in Scorpio and Taurus, and these are both of the marks of the Pleiades. And this means that Pleiadian lineup will be especially significant for you. I just take a moment here. I'm going back to look at something in your chart. You have had Pleiadian activations before this. They might not have been as direct, but I'm seeing when you were about a little more than 5 years old, you had a huge galactic activation, which is actually happening again. So I'm glad to see that, so I can tell you in full detail about that. So both marks of the Pleiades are really activating your Pleiadian DNA, and it means that Pleiadian lineup, which actually just ended yesterday, is especially significant for you. It'll happen again in November, every May and November. And these are 2 times a year when you should pay attention to, and even now today, because the Pleiadians will still use the 28th and 29th degrees. And I think today it's probably at 28. I didn't really check. But there's still a connection to the Pleiadians. And the every twice a year, when this Pleiadian lineup comes back around, pay attention to everything that goes on in your life, whether it's dreams, meditation, information, people that show up, doors that open or close. Any of these can mark a turning point, even if it doesn't seem like any big deal at the time. Just remember, because seeds can be planted that don't bear fruit until later on. And then when they do, you can track things back if you kept notes about what happened and see if that seed were planted during Pleiadian lineup, and then you'll have confirmation of its galactic significance in your life. And these are also 2 of the crystal soul group markings. So it may stimulate a new interest or a renewed interest in crystals. And the little ebook in our vault, if that is the case for you, called Quartz Crystals, is like the Starseed Handbook for the proper care and use of crystals, and it can help you to remember more about them. So next, I want you to look in your 3rd house, where you have Mercury now at 2538 Pisces. And this galactic degree is called the mark of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with any religion. It has to do with your connection to 2 avatars who came with a great mission to teach us about unconditional love and our own divinity. Of course, that was quickly subverted by the powers that were at the time and twisted into organized religion. But this is about your connection to these 2 beings in any of several different ways. If you had a lifetime where you witnessed their work, that would be a connection. Or if you participated in some way, also a connection. This can also be about the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. But please keep in mind that there are millions and millions of people that actually carry that bloodline. So I never want anyone to get a Messiah complex because I've told them this. And also in subsequent lifetimes, if you had a role to play in the protection of the bloodline or the preservation of the truth of their work, that would also be a connection. And many groups down through history have served in this way, like the Knights Templar, the Cathars of South France, and many others. And anytime I see this marking on a chart, I recommend a book called The Expected One by Kathleen McGowan, because it's the true story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which was deliberately omitted from the Bible. And this book may touch you on a very deep level. It might stimulate some remembrance of those times, but I always caution people against getting entangled in past lifetimes, because there's no power in that. Your power exists in the here and now. And in the present day, this soul group is stepping up for missions of massive healing on any and every level. Whether it is the healing of the planet, or the imbalance between the people and the planet, the imbalance between masculine and feminine, the imbalance between science or spirit. There are so many things that are wounded and out of balance in this world that it's a good thing that this is such a large soul group, because there will be members of this group hard at work in all of these areas. This is also another connection to the Pleiadians, because the arrival of Jesus and Mary Magdalene was orchestrated by the Pleiadians. It took 500 years to prepare the bloodlines to carry these energies. And Jesus and Mary themselves have a Pleiadian heritage, so it's very much a connection to the Pleiades. And now, in about a month, you're going to have activation to both marks of the Pleiades. And if you look in your fourth house, your progressed Venus is now at 1340 Taurus. And once again, you have had this activation before in your lifetime. Probably when you were about 2 years old was the first time, and it's happened a few more times since then. But you've got it going now, and it's really interesting, which I'll explain after I tell you what this marking is about. 13 degrees is the mark of the avatars. Avatars are ascended masters who have ascended many times over again, and they seldom incarnate on this planet. So in their physical absence, they work through people like you who have volunteered to carry this frequency in service to the avatars. Examples of avatars include Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Vishnu, Mohammed, Saint Germain, and the list goes on. But all of the avatars are dedicated to our proper evolutionary development. I call 13 degrees the passive star marking, though, because with this one, you don't have to do anything except show up. Because everywhere you go, you're broadcasting the avatar frequency in your energy field, like a radio transmitter. And any time another person is simply in your presence, if that person has a corresponding harmonic in their energy, just being around you is enough to wake them up to their next level. They could just be standing next to you at the grocery store, and then they'll go home and have a revelation or a dream or something that awakens them to their next level of consciousness. But they'll never be able to figure out why it happened on that day, just because they were in line behind you at checkout. So it's like being a secret agent. Everywhere you go, there are certain people that are going to benefit. Although you'll probably never get to see the results of this, because obviously you don't know what happens to strangers when they go home. However, if you ever feel drawn to show up someplace where there will be a gathering of people, pay attention to those urges, because it could be a request for your assistance from one of the avatars. So if you show up at this gathering, what you're really doing, just by being there, is holding the avatar frequency in the third dimension, anchoring that space, holding that point, assisting the avatar that wanted you there with whatever purpose they had for this group. But once again, unless you keep track of everyone that was there, you won't get to see the results of this. So that's why I call it the passive star marking. There are some interesting patterns that I've discovered after looking at thousands of starseed charts. And when I see the mark of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, 98% of the time, the mark of the avatars shows up at the same time. So that is consistent with starseed activations that we're familiar with. And also the crystal soul group, which is being activated on this chart, in about a month, and the Jesus and Mary Magdalene soul group. I see this about 50% of the time. When I'm looking at the crystal soul group, about half of them also carry the mark of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And it's like two families having the same grandparents, being the Pleiadians. So there's often this overlap with these particular two soul groups. And your charts fit these patterns very well. If you look in the 7th house, you'll see that your progressed Athena is also at the mark of the avatars. And it's Venus and Athena, and this is pointing towards that mission on behalf of the feminine, which is part of the Jesus and Mary Magdalene soul group missions of healing. And then if you look in the 2nd house, which is the house of values and belief systems, your progressed Jupiter is at 1153, which activates 12 degrees, the mark of the healer. And Pisces has to do with, as I said, religion, spiritual service, and at 12 degrees, healing false belief systems, especially connected to religion. Jupiter is also about, spirituality and religion. Pisces is obviously associated with Christianity, but there have been a lot of karmic battle scars incurred by organized people who follow organized religion. So healing, spiritual healing, healing with truth, and bringing information that helps with this healing where the values and belief systems are concerned. Now, you did have that activation of galactic degree in Libra, which is an excellent star marking to carry when it comes to diplomacy and tact, which is Libra's strong suit. Maybe not so much with Sagittarius, but being able to gently plant seeds or ask the right question to get people thinking that possibly what they've been told isn't true. Because this is about values and belief systems, especially connected to any kind of spirituality. And Jupiter brings that unlimited growth and expansion with higher truth. But it still is going to make you want to save people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing unless it costs you too much to do that. You always have to make sure that you are not overextended. So, also in that 2nd house, there is another galactic degree today, but that particular thing doesn't carry a lot of importance on a progress chart, because if I had run this last week or next week, that wouldn't be there. It just moves too quickly to really activate anything. So that's just a coincidence for today. And I am scanning your chart. I think that covers all the current activations. Oh, nope, there's one more. On your 12th house cusp, you've got 1527 Sagittarius. This is the mark of the Antares Arcturus Midway Station, which is a physical space station on the outskirts of our solar system, and it's the home of the Great White Brotherhood, the Crystal Brotherhood, many other brotherhoods and sisterhoods dedicated to various things. But the beings that operate from there are highly advanced, highly evolved, multidimensional beings who come from all over. The station was simply named after the builders, the Antarians and the Arcturians, being the most scientifically advanced races. And these beings are super good guys. They help to uphold the universal laws, to implement the divine plan, and help to oversee our proper evolutionary development. And these, I'm sure there are Pleiadians that are stationed there, as well as any number of other races. And this is probably mostly a connection to the Crystal Brotherhood. So the little quartz crystal ebook in our vault would be very helpful in helping you to remember the do's and don'ts where crystals are concerned. And there's another little ebook called 50 Questions and Answers that I think might really appeal to you, because it also came from the Midway Station, and it gives the galactic perspective on what's really happening here, which is a lot more accurate than what we think is going on. So both of those little ebooks came from a being aboard the Midway Station. The Quartz Crystal ebook was a member of the Crystal Brotherhood, and the 50 Questions and Answers are just very profound and very revealing. So I think you would enjoy both of those. And I think that covers everything that I wanted to tell you about on this chart. So I do hope that you resonate with your natural state as it's presented here in these charts. And I hope you find this information empowering as well as enlightening. And if you have any questions or would like to go deeper into your charts or your current situation, I'd be happy to assist you in the next level, Stage 2 session. But in the meantime, take advantage of our radio archives and listen to the shows that we've done about crystals, about the Pleiades. We have several episodes on Mary Magdalene, which is a lot about the Divine Feminine, and any other episodes that might catch your eye. We have a Starseed community online where you can be with like-minded people. And we strongly recommend that all starseeds have at least a basic understanding of astrology so you can better navigate your life and your mission with more success by following your daily transits. And for that purpose, we have designed a digital download course called Basic Astrology for Starseeds to help you learn just the basics so that you can follow your transits. And it was written for people who don't have any prior astrological education or very little. And the links for all three of these are on the email that I sent with your charts. And do remember to take another look in the Starseed tool belt for the silica recommendations to make the most of your ship connections. And I want to thank you for allowing me to see your charts. And Kimberly, thank you for choosing to come to this planet when you did. Bye-bye.